Okay, let's get started, and others can join as we go along. I'm Hamish, and we're going to talk to you today about how to avoid animal testing for cosmetics products in China.
I'm Cristina. I have been working for Thysema as an account manager since 2 years, but I have a lot of experience in business consultancy with companies, and I take care mainly of Spanish-speaking customers. And Hamish, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Christina. I'm Hamish. I'm CEO at Kizema, and I'm a lawyer by training, qualified in Australia and also in Hong Kong, where I'm speaking from today and have lived for the past 7.5 years. Christina, could you take us through a little bit about our company, please?
So Thysema is a company who is 20 years old. So it was founded in Germany and in China at the same time for a former Siemens employee. And we can support you with everything what has to do with regulatory affairs, quality assurance, clinical research, product testing, customs, safety certification services for China and for Hong Kong. We have offices in Hong Kong. Also, Hamish is actually based in Hong Kong. And as I say, I'm based in Germany, Munich, and we take care mainly of European customers. So we do not only cosmetic, we do as well medicals, pharmaceuticals, healthy food, industrial products, pressure vessels products, consumer goods. But we only do China, Hong Kong, and this area. Yeah. We have more or less 100 employees in 12 locations worldwide, and we can support you with all your regulatory affairs. If you need anything, just come to us. Mm-hmm. So our agenda today, we are going to talk about cosmetic definition and framework, animal testing, special versus general cosmetics. What is the difference? This is very important if you want to sell in China. Then we are going to talk about the important figure of the domestic responsible agent. This is very important. And it's very important that you choose the right one. And labeling for your samples and cosmetic ingredients considerations. So general considerations. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Let's begin. So I'm going to start by just setting the scene briefly with this somewhat busy slide, but I hope that we can break it down and make it seem simple for you, just to describe the definition of cosmetics in China. Cosmetics refer to daily chemical industrial products that are applied to the skin, the hair, nails, lips, or other human surfaces by scrubbing, spraying, or other similar methods for the purpose of cleansing, beautifying, skin protection, and modification. So you can just see here on the slide, we've broken out some of the properties, the application methods, and the intended effects, and also indicated there are a few different categories of products that are regulated by the CSAR, which is the relatively new top-level cosmetics regulation in China. As we show here on the slide, soaps may also be covered by the cosmetics regulations if they have specific cosmetics efficacies. We're going to talk a little bit more about what those efficacies may be. Toothpaste also is a hot topic because by the end of this year, they will also need to be registered in a similar or filed in a similar way to cosmetics products. We won't go into more detail about toothpaste in this webinar, but if you'd like more information there, please let us know. The original draft regulation was issued in January 2021, but only recently has the more formal regulation clarifying the start date been issued. And however, there's still supporting and subsidiary regulation to come.
Give you an overview of what is a special cosmetic and what is a general cosmetic. So for special cosmetic, we have products that are used for freckle removal or whitening. These are special cosmetic, hard dyeing colorants as well, hair permit, sunscreen protection, anti-hair loss. So you cannot claim that you have a hair growth efficacy or contain hair growth in the product name. Then it is then it's a special cosmetic, and any cosmetic products with new efficacy claims that determined by the NMPA, what is the authority in China for cosmetic. And for general cosmetic, you have all cosmetics that are not in this list of special cosmetic.
Here we just break down a little bit more about the difference between special and general cosmetics. Special cosmetics go through a registration process, which in our experience takes a year or more. General cosmetics go through a filing process, which takes 4 to 6 months in our experience on average. The certificate validity for special requires renewal every 5 years. General cosmetics have unlimited validity. However, it's worth mentioning that that if you change the formula, often you will need to refile your product as a general cosmetic. The key point to make is that special cosmetics will still require toxicological or animal testing in China, whereas general cosmetics don't necessarily require animal testing, and that's the good news for the industry. However, there are additional considerations to apply, which we're going to talk about in the following slides. Do you, as an imported manufacturer, require a local agent in China called the domestic responsible agent? Yes, is the answer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And the responsibility scope of such local agents is relatively broad. In terms of ballpark figures and costing, because testing is needed to be done for both general and special cosmetics in China. Again, as part of your registration or filing process, this increases the total cost, which we generally say is closer to 5,000 euros for a general cosmetic and more like 30,000 euros for a special cosmetic. Ballpark all-in costs, translations, testing costs, dossier preparation, and so on. So once you have determined whether your product is a cosmetic, then whether it's a general or a special cosmetic, you've thought about what those access pathways might be like, then you may consider, well, what are my broad options for entering the Chinese market? And there are 3 broad options. You can sell via cross-border e-commerce. That's the middle option. This is the online approach. Such sales do not require a filing or a registration. However, you will need to comply with the relevant platform-specific requirements, which are increasingly strict and more like the general or special registration or filing process. There's domestic manufacturing, which we won't go into further in this session, and there's the general trade registration or filing. To avoid animal testing, you have 2 broad options. You can therefore sell online, or you can seek to be animal testing exempt in accordance with the following steps we're going to detail. Christina, would you mind talking us through what are the ways we avoid animal testing?
Yeah, exactly. So as Hamish said, so if you sold online on these platforms, you don't need an animal testing, that's for sure. And if you sell in Hong Kong, you don't need it either. But if you are selling in mainland China in a normal general trade, that's also on-site, you need to consider as these 4 conditions in order to avoid animal testing. So the first of them, you have to have a general cosmetic and not a special cosmetic. You have to rely on ingredients listed on this inventory of existing cosmetic ingredients in China, what was published in 2021. And you have to be able to carry out a full product risk assessment based on existing ingredient data, and to obtain a GMP certification from your local government and not from another institution. Yeah? It has to be for your national or local government. This is very important, and many companies have problems with that, getting that.
Yeah, and let's go into a bit more detail about that, because that is the real gating item here.
So as I said before, the Good Manufacturing Practice certificate needs to be issued by a local authority or national authority. So it's not enough to get it from an institution or industry association. So you have to go to this local. So here we have two examples, one from Germany, from the local authority, and one from the US. So if you have questions regarding which authorities you need to contact, please write us an email. Maybe we can support you with that. So if your product is designed for baby, there are some exceptions, and this is if your product is for babies or children, you always need to do animal testing. Yeah. If you have special cosmetics as well, as we said before, and if you have new cosmetic ingredients in your products, then and they are not listed in this list of inventory of existing cosmetic ingredients in China, then your product must still undergo animal testing.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, and so this GMP certificate is the key important information that manufacturers need to ensure that they have, and of course it's country specific. Just to provide some background here to support manufacturers understand the requirement, in China it is the government or the government authorities who will issue such GMPs, and so as part of the lobbying and the development so that they will agree to accept animal testing exemptions for cosmetics products, the Chinese government has said, okay, but then we will need to see the relevant GMP certificate because GMP certificates are issued by government authorities in China. They have therefore sought to use reciprocal arrangements internationally. This has been problematic because traditionally companies, of course, would use a third-party certification or industry association to obtain the GMP. There has been developments in various countries enabling for GMP certificates to be issued by various of their bodies. So here we have a few examples. In the US and in Australia, I should mention it is complicated by the fact that the relevant health authority in general would refuse to be involved in such cosmetics regulations or GMP certificate issuing. So it's had to be solved on a state-by-state level. And that has caused difficulties because only 2 states at this time, California and New Jersey, are agreeing to issue such certificates. So for manufacturers located in other US states, this is still a work in progress in order to be able to obtain such GMP certificates. I'll talk in the next slide about some instances where we're working with companies to lobby US states to try to ensure that that they can issue such GMPs. But we've also set out here how, for example, the French government, as well as Italy and Spain, do now issue such GMP certificates, the relevant health authorities. And so if you are a manufacturer sourcing product from these countries, you should ensure that your GMP is updated to comply, to ensure that you can get the animal testing exemptions for your products when submitted to China. We have some other examples on the slide here for Finland. We have received a few requests from Finnish companies in particular, so I thought this might be useful to share. And hot off the press, Australia, which is my home country, also now issues GMPs in accordance with the requirements for China animal testing exemptions. This is a welcome development, only a few weeks old, and this has taken or is a result of various lobbying efforts over the last few years. Here's the links to the slide on the slide where you can find more information for Finland and Australia. I mentioned just in the last slide very briefly that we have received requests for other US states wondering or asking about how, if their facilities are located in other states of the US, can they also obtain the GMP? And we've been working with some lobbyists and manufacturers and investors to try to help and support and update their GMP requirements, which is a extended learning process, but there does seem to be movement here. And also from a US nationwide level, there are recent developments in terms of increasingly strict regulations for cosmetics, most particularly the new MOCRA cosmetics regulation, which is has been issued in the US, and so that may have some further developments in the next year or two. The other point to say is if you want to double check whether your GMP is satisfactory for animal testing exemption, then please get in touch. I'd be happy to ask the team to check it for you. Okay. Let's talk about testing now, Christina. Could you take us through?
Exactly. So there's a main difference in China. So you need to do testing. The testing is to be done in China. So this is part of your general cosmetic filling or special cosmetic registration. And what is needed for all products is a microbiological test and a physical and chemical test. Then the toxicological test, such as skin irritation and eye irritation, depends on the product. And the human safety inspection, such as skin patch test, human trial test, depends as well on the product you want to register. And then there is a need to make an efficacy evaluation test that is needed for all products, but this can be done in your own country. So this last point is the advantage. You can use the efficacy evaluation test you have done in your country for the registration. So since you need to make this test, you need to send samples to China. And there is a couple of tips that you need to consider in order to get those samples through the whole registration process. No, key thing is that they need to be unsealed samples. So because if not, the test may fail. Yeah, the samples should not be close to expiration, and the production date or batch number, yeah, need to be the same for all the products sent, or all the batch of products that need to be tested. Yeah, you need to send the product that is going to be sold in China, so with a final packaging and a final label, everything ready, and we can support you with that. If you have problems, we can print for you packaging and do the labeling in China, so that you have a ready product to send to the lab. Yeah. So dynamic packaging is sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
And just a little bit more about the efficacy claims and testing that Christina referred to. Efficacy evaluation and evidencing is a relatively new requirement in China as part of this whole new cosmetics regulation framework, the CSAR. And I just thought it might be helpful to break down what are the evidentiary requirements for your cosmetics product as part of the efficacy claim. We've just set out some example efficacy claims on the slide here. There is a set list of China-approved cosmetics efficacy claims, and it's worth mentioning that your cosmetics product must have at least one efficacy claim in order to be considered a cosmetics product in China. So, for example, freckle removing and whitening or sunscreen products are special cosmetics, and they will require human testing or trials as part of the efficacy claim evaluation. This is what adds to the substantial cost, of course, of the registration process. On the other hand, claims like anti-wrinkle or relieving or soothing claims, these can also rely on consumer use tests or laboratory-specific tests in conjunction with literature documents in order to support the registration or filing in China. These tests can be done in your home country or in a China lab. In our experience, tests done in a China lab tend to be quicker and often cheaper for companies. However, if consumer products companies have already done such testing themselves, then of course it would be silly to duplicate the data. As you move down the table here, you can see that the requirements reduce. For example, for moisturizing claims or hair care claims, it would be sufficient to have literature documents or research data alone to support your efficacy claim. This will clearly reduce the total cost required. On the other hand, there are some claims that are seen as relatively basic so that you don't need any supporting information at all, such as cleansing or makeup removing. If you make such claims here in your China product, then in fact, you won't need to provide additional efficacy claim evaluation support. If you'd like to understand more about the efficacy claims process and the testing required, please inform.
Okay, now, so there is the domestic responsible agent is a key figure in China because he's going to be the your responsible company there. Yeah, it's going to do the filing, the registration for you. It's going to be your interface to the NMPA. It's going to support you with customs, with post-market activities or monitoring recallings of products. And it's going to track your records of sales, and it's going to have access to all your information. Yeah. So there are three figures. You can, of course, go with your own subsidiary there, but this is quite expensive because you have to have someone there who is employee and set up a company, and takes a long time as well. Then you have the distributor, what is a risk because they will have, as I say, access to all your confidential information, to your formula, to your production process, and he will control your online account, and you have to always ask him, please change this, and it will limit your access to other distributors because he will have control over everything, and of course he won't like to, you have to always ask them for permission to do any changes. Yeah. They will have as well a copy of your, for special cosmetic, they will have a hard copy of your certificate. And this is important to import products to China. You don't have it, or you need to make any changes, you cannot get them through. Yeah. So you have a third option, what is getting a consultant company, what is independent. Yeah, and this solution is neutral to you, and you have full control over everything. Nobody's going to look into your how do you say into your ingredients and your formulas, and it's going to be neutral, no? So you can have as many distributors as you want, and it will take care of everything, and they have the knowledge, no, as well about the market. So if there are any change on regulation that we are seeing already, they can support you with that because they are experienced. And this consulting firm will be, for example, Fisema. We are offering this service if you are interested.
Thank you, Christina. So in the few minutes remaining, there's just a couple more topics we'll mention. One is about labeling. What labeling requirements are needed for the China market? You will need to have a Chinese label. This can be specifically developed as part of your or comprehensive together with your label for the market, or it can be stuck on before it reaches customs. The specific information required includes, the product name, the address of the manufacturer, as well as expiration date, instructions for use, safety information, and so on. The Chinese label will need to be in Chinese, of course, and that Chinese label specifically needs to have this mandatory information. Here's some further information about the label. You need to be careful about some of the claims made in the label. It can't contain information that implies medical effects. It can't have false misleading statements. And there's some other more general requirements as well. The efficacy claims on the label, which we've talked earlier about, need to have sufficient scientific basis, which you will need to evidence as part of your submission. And the raw materials should match with the intended uses as well as amounts. This is the Chinese cosmetic label is part of the standard process of preparing your registration dossier or filing submission. Okay, so the last topic we would like to talk about briefly today is the cosmetics ingredients that are part of the cosmetics product submission. There has been some developments in the last year or so because previously the cosmetics ingredients regulation was more relaxed, but now the CSAR, the cosmetics framework in China, requires more mandatory safety information about your ingredient. The first question then is when checking your China compliance for your cosmetics product, are all your ingredients on the approved list, the so-called IEC-IC? If not, then the ingredient itself will need to be registered or filed at the NMPA before it can be included in the cosmetic product. And then there is a 3-year monitoring period, which was alluded to earlier. And during that time, the cosmetics product itself would still need to undergo animal testing in China, even if it was a general cosmetic, because this is seen as still not having full safety. On the other hand, if the product or ingredients do all exist on the IEC-IC, then the ingredients will need to either be supported by safety information in the form of what's called Annex 14, which is the annex to the CSAR regulation, or cosmetics ingredients manufacturers are quickly, and many of them are now obtaining the relevant code, which is a filing code you can generate at the NMPA, which provides more certainty for the ingredients manufacturer, and also more easily or readily allows you as a cosmetics product manufacturer and submitter to just use the file itself, the file code itself, rather than providing full safety information as part of your dossier. So it simplifies the process. It also helps the cosmetics ingredients manufacturers to retain their confidentiality of information if that's required. So that's a very brief overview about how to avoid animal testing in China for cosmetics products. And Christina, perhaps you could say something briefly about our services, and then we'll be happy to take some questions.
Exactly. So we can support you with your China regulatory affairs and with your China quality compliance. As we said before, we can support you as being your domestic responsible agent with the pre-evaluation and China conformity check. We have as well staff placed in national laboratories who undertake final product and ingredient testing, as well as the creation of the product safety assessment report necessary for the filling registration. We told you already that we can support you with your cosmetic and ingredient testing. Yeah, I said that before. And with the cosmetic ingredient code application. Yeah. And regarding the quality compliance, so we have seen that is starting a need. So there is a new regulation which is making new factory inspections as well for cosmetic producers. We have been doing inspections for the last 20 years for industrial customers and for pressure vessels customers, pressure components. So we have a lot of experience with that. We can support you as well with a gap analysis. So this means we compare your situation, your current papers that you have for your market with what is needed in China and give you the changes you need to make. So it's quite straightforward. So you don't need to invest your resources in that. We do that for you. And we also assist you with the standard operating procedure and quality management system. And we integrate all of the Chinese requirement into your current GMP quality management system, COP, standard operating processes based on your needs. No, James, would you like to add something? And we can make training also for your staff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a helpful summary. Thank you, Christina. And we have various locations around the world, all focused, of course, on China, where most of our staff are based and where our key technical experts reside. And thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.